Welcome back, everyone, to our seventh episode of season 7 of the Truth and Freedom podcast, where awakening begins with asking the question most people are afraid to ask. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Amzalag, and this is not just another podcast. This is a journey into awareness, courage, and truth. Now, there comes a moment in every person's life where they must decide whether they will simply repeat what they have been told or whether they will have the courage to think for themselves. It is one of the most important choices we'll ever make because our freedom is shaped not only by the laws that govern us, but by the thoughts we are willing to examine and the convictions we are willing to defend. Now, we live in a world that rewards agreement and often punishes dissent. Social media amplifies popular opinion. Headlines compete for attention. Algorithms feed us ideas that reinforce what we already believe. In many environments, the pressure to conform is subtle but powerful. It can feel safer to go along with the crowd than to ask uncomfortable questions. It can feel easier to stay silent than to risk criticism. Yet, history reminds us that nearly every meaningful breakthrough began when someone dared to challenge conventional thinking. Now, independent thought is not rebellion for its own sake. It is a disciplined practice of seeking truth with honesty and humility. It requires a willingness to examine evidence, question assumptions, and acknowledge when we may be wrong. It asks us to think carefully rather than react impulsively. It invites us to develop convictions that are grounded in reason, principle, and experience. Groupthink occurs when the desire for harmony becomes more important than the pursuit of truth. In those moments, people stop asking difficult questions. Doubts are suppressed. Alternative perspectives are dismissed. Over time, conformity creates an illusion of certainty while limiting understanding. The danger is not simply that we may adopt incorrect ideas. It is that we may stop thinking critically altogether. The antidote to group thinking is intellectual courage. Intellectual courage is the strength to examine ideas on their merits, even when doing so is so unpopular. It is a willingness to say, I need more information, or I see this differently, or something like, I was mistaken. It is the humility to revise our views when the evidence leads us into a new direction. And it is the confidence to hold thoughtful conviction, even when they place us in the minority. Courage does not eliminate discomfort. Standing apart from the crowd can feel lonely. Questions may be misunderstood. Motives may be challenged. But progress has always depended on individuals who value truth more than approval. Scientists, reformers, entrepreneurs, and moral leaders changed the world because they were willing to think independently and act on what they believed was right. One of the most powerful tools of independent thoughts is the ability to ask better questions. Instead of accepting information at face value, ask something like, what evidence supports this claim? Or what assumptions are being made? Or something like, what perspective might be missing? Or who benefit from this narrative? And what if the opposite were true? Questions sharpen understanding. They transform passive consumption into active learning. Independent thinking also requires respectful disagreement. We do not grow by surrounding ourselves only with voices that echo our own. We grow by engaging with people who challenge us to think more clearly. Respectful disagreement allows us to test our ideas, refine our reasoning, and develop empathy for those who see the world differently. It is possible to disagree without hostility and to remain curious without compromising conviction. True freedom is inseparable from responsibility. Thinking for yourself does not mean rejecting every opinion except your own. It means taking ownership of your beliefs. It means doing the work of reflection, study, and honest evaluation. It means resisting the temptation to outsource your judgment to the loudest voice in the room. There will be times when independent thought requires you to stand alone. You may choose principles over popularity. You may decline to repeat ideas you do not believe. You may raise questions when others prefer certainty. In those moments, remember that solitude is not failure. It is often the price of integrity. At the same time, independent thinkers remain open-minded. They understand that confidence and humility can coexist. They hold convictions firmly, but they also listen carefully. They recognize that seeking truth is an ongoing process, not a destination. The goal is to not win every argument. The goal is to understand reality more clearly and to live in alignment with what is true. Your mind is one of the greatest assets. Guard it from manipulation. Feed it with thoughtful ideas. Challenge it with meaningful questions. Allow it the space to think deeply rather than react instantly. In a culture of constant noise, reflection becomes a powerful act of freedom. The world needs people who can think independently and lead responsibly. It needs individuals who are willing to question assumptions, engage respectfully, and make decisions based on principle rather than pressure. It needs voices that are thoughtful, courageous, and grounded in truth. You do not need to have all the answers. You only need the willingness to ask honest questions and the courage to follow the evidence, wherever it leads. You need the discipline to think critically and the character to remain respectful. You need the confidence to stand by your own conviction and the humility to adjust them when necessary. Independent thinking is not always comfortable, but it is essential. It protects us from manipulation. It expands our understanding. It strengthens our integrity. And it allows us to contribute something meaningful to the world. So when you feel the pressure to conform, pause and ask yourself what you truly believe. When you encounter popular opinion, examine them carefully. When you disagree, do so with respect. When you discover new evidence, remain open to growth. Think deeply, question honestly, listen carefully, and speak courageously. Because independent thinking is a cornerstone of freedom. And when you have the courage to think for yourself, you do more than protect your own mind. You help build a world where truth matters, dialogue is possible, and freedom endures. I'd like to thank you all for joining me today to the Truth and Freedom podcast, and I look forward to continuing this journey of awareness, courage, and freedom with you in our next episode. Until then, my little friends, stay curious, stay awake, and stay free.